Luke Spence,
Here.
Henry Corbin,
Here.
Dane Nielsen,
Here.
Jason Sampson,
Here.
Steve Skaggs,
Here.
Sandy Eric. Here.
The first item is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Dane, second by Jason. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll move on to the public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. No hearing. Can I get a vote? Motion approved. Next item is the public hearing. Item A, the proposed property tax levy for the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget.
So if you want me to just give a little synopsis, I can start with that. If I can get everything up here. This was the notice. Oh, that's right. I forgot. I'm not used to this. I have to pull it over so everyone can see it. This was the notice that everybody saw in the paper. Showed the 12% change, 12.56% change, which is very misleading. Then the letters that were received from Story County, and those letters are from legislation that required what was in the letters. So they were just the ones that were told that they had to send these letters out. So the letter goes through and talks about the school proposed levy and the property tax rate, the current rate, and then the proposed, and then Story County was next. And then the city was below that. And it shows our current rate of 14.614 and our proposed rate is 14.60948. Down just a little bit. And I'll talk about that here in a minute, but it shows an example then, the school change at 15.74, the county at 2.44, and the city at 12.56. Again, those are misleading because in the current rate, they estimated your valuation at 100,000, but in the proposed year, they estimated it at 110,000, like a residential property. And this is not a reassessment year. So most residential properties will not see a valuation increase. Unless it's a new build or an addition or something like that. So that skews it a little bit because they've increased the valuation and most of them are not this year. And the other thing that isn't listed on this letter are the other levies that we pay for in the total levy that you see like on your tax statements when they come. And that shows down below. I don't know if you guys can see that. Do I need to increase it a little bit? Can they see it on theirs?
Yes.
On your computers?
No.
But you can see it up there.
You don't have it.
So this shows all the levies that are included. And the ones I don't know about is DMAC. And then I have the proposed school, county, and city. DMAC and the hospital are there too. And so that shows an estimated total because we don't know all the proposed levies right at this time. So that it kind of explains the letter and why it shows that 12% when in reality it isn't that much. This also is a good slide, I thought, to show because it shows the actual assessed valuation. Hit me if I need to increase it a little bit. It doesn't show very well. Okay. The black line column shows the actual value, assessed valuation, and it shows at the end how it went up in 25 and 26. But then if you look at the gray, it shows the actual taxable valuation and how it didn't really go up as much as the assessed, 100% assessed valuation. And then the other ones, you can see that the commercial is green and then light green, and industrial is the blue. And multi-residential used to be a class that we had. It used to be in commercial and it was like apartment buildings and those kinds of things that had a lot of units or whatever. And then 2017, I believe, they took it out, made it multi-residential, and in the next 5 years, lowered their rollback to what it was, what residential is. And the rollback changes every year based on what the state does. Let's see if I have the. So this was a slide that the Department of Management gave us to put in an assessed value for January 2023, which we'll pay in 24-25, which is the current fiscal year. And then January 2024, which we'll pay in 24-25, 25-26 fiscal year. So as I said, this is just putting in an assumption, the valuation of a residential property is $193,400. And as I said, this one didn't have any additions or anything, so the valuation stayed the same. And then it calculates on its own the taxable. And you'll see a slight increase in the 2020 January 24 one because the rollback changed. In 23, and in this fiscal year, the rollback was about 46%. And then in FY 26, the budget we're working on now, the rollback was 47%. So that's why you see the difference in the taxable property value. And then I put in all the numbers from that letter that was sent out to put those in, and then it shows at the bottom the estimated current and proposed for school, county, and city. And then it shows the percentage of change. Like the school is 5.26% change. The county actually went down 6.57%, and the city change was 2.29% change. Make sense a little bit?
Mhm.
And then the commercial is a little different because they have a different rollback than residential. And this just shows, this has got a wrong number in it, hit the same number, 225. There you go. So this shows what their change would be. And their change isn't as much because their rollback stays pretty constant.
Karen, if I remember right, we're only allowed to go up, what, 2 or 3% every year?
So
Is that the new rule from a couple years ago?
it's not exactly like that. It's valuations. They use that in their calculations for the rollback and all of that, and that's over my head. But it's used, that percentage is used somehow when they're figuring the rollback. And that's what the state does that. I don't work with that.
Yeah,
it's have enough.
I mean, it's a cap, they could say it's a cap at 3% growth. So if you go above that, then it's reduced.
Right, which we grew over 3%.
Yeah.
And that's why we're under the ability to charge more than 3% or 3%. So
I did do, I'm looking for it here. I did some examples. I just went to Beacon and pulled some examples. Just showing, let's see need to shrink it just a little bit so you can see everything. I guess it's about all on there. So this follows the history of an actual property that I just randomly found on Beacon to see how it went, how it looked, and how the valuations increased. And you can see how they went up. This was the reassessment year, so that the 25 year went up. 26 is going to stay the same. And this shows the next line is the rollback. Back in 23, FY 23, it was 54%. And 24, it was 54.65%, which is, those are the typical numbers for rollback. I have never seen in my almost 30 years, the rollback go down to 46%. But that's how years ago, when the rollback was created, when valuation goes up so much, then that kicks the rollback down so that the actual taxable property isn't taxed as much. Makes sense?
For somebody.
You're doing great.
get
It's
it.
hard to explain.
It is hard to explain, but so then that next line shows the actual taxable valuation over the course of those 4 years. The next line, which I'll show you in a minute, how those military and senior exemptions, they just started happening this current fiscal year. And that was part of the new legislation. But this one is just a property that didn't have either of those. That's why there's zeros in that. And then that's the next line is just another taking, if there was, taking those, subtracting those out. And then this is the total levy rate that all of those entities that I talked about before, and what those totals have been over the course of the last 4 years, and you can see those. And then the next line is the gross taxes that were due for the property, and then minus homestead. And then that's the net taxes that were due for this property. This 1.0267, that's 2.67% increase from 25 to 26. That's the total. And again, that's just an estimate because I don't know all of those other entities' levies, proposed levies. Except the 3 that we know for sure that came in there. And then this is just showing the next line. Let's do this. Is the city levy rate and what it's been historically. And then the next line shows the city tax that would have been received. However, I will say that the exemption, the homestead exemption, there would be a portion of that $169.37 that would be the city's portion, and it would be subtracted from this city only tax received. I just did a simple math with the levy and the taxable valuation to come up with the city portion. And then this 2.31% is the difference from the year before. And that's the dollar amount difference. The 29.81 is the dollar amount difference from 25 to the proposed. So. This one is one that shows the senior exemption. So if you're 65 and older, you can file a letter with the county and tell them you're 65 or older and you'll get a senior exemption. This current year, it's $32.50. And then for the proposed FY 26, the exemption is going up to $6,500. So if you look at the bottom of this, it actually goes down. And we don't get as much as we did before. Make sense? And then this is the military, showing how it used to be 1,852 and now it's up to 4,000, and it's going to stay the same. And also you'll notice that some of the numbers, the assessed valuations are different up there because I found an actual Beacon one that had those exemptions, so I could make sure my numbers matched and matched the county, and I was making sure they were all right, so. This is a commercial one. In FY 23 legislation changed again a little bit, where the rollback was the first 150,000 went to the same as residential rollback. So it was in 23, 90%, and then in 24, it went to 54%. Then if there's apartments above a commercial, it gets even more challenging. But it shows you the history of it too. A lot of them saw reduce when it went to residential because they were paying more. And then this just gives you an idea of the industrial. See it at all? Can see it? Okay. So that's just giving you a little history. If there's any questions or any questions, be happy to try and answer or find an answer if I can't answer it today.
Karen, would you just remind us of the timeline? Because I know we're in line with this process.
So tonight was another requirement of House File 718, and we are supposed to just have this public hearing, give the opportunity for anyone to ask questions about the proposed levy and the letters that the Story County went out. So this is just a meeting just to talk about that. And then once it's over, we'll open the regular council meeting, and then we'll set the hearing for the next budget, for the actual budget adoption in April 14th. So,
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I was just gonna say thanks, Karen, for all the work you do on this. I know it's a long process throughout the year, and I know a lot of folks are here for other reasons, but it's kind of nice to have a crowd here to kind of see all the work that you do for our community, because like without you, this ship doesn't float. So thank you, Karen.
Any other discussion? Right, seeing no discussion. We need a vote.
To adjourn.
All right,
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
Second.
okay, Dane, Steve. Adjourned.
Nope, gotta vote.
Rookie.
Are we electronically or verbally? Verbally?
for adjourning,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, adjourned.
No. No. 20 minutes.
Sorry.
Luke
My fault.
Spence,
Here.
Henry Corbin,
Here.
Dane Nielsen,
Here.
Jason Sampson,
Here.
Steve Skaggs.
Here.
Sandy Eric.
Here.
First item on the agenda is, or first item is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, Sandy, Steve. We're going to have we need to get the vote. Council, please vote. Okay, motion passes. Next item is the public hearing. Item A, capstone rezoning public hearing will be held on April 14th, 2025, not March 24th, 2025, due to a publication error. Next item is the approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Steve, Dane? Council, please vote. Motion approved. Item A, approved minutes of the work session held on March 10th, 2025.
That's probably consent.
Okay. Okay. Item B, approved minutes of the regular meeting held on March 10th, 2025. Oh,
Approval of the consent.
okay, approval of
There
the
you go.
consent agenda.
Make it a lot easier. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. Council, please vote.
We did.
What's that?
We did.
That's not-
Is that how we?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Six.
All right, so 6 is the public forum.
Yep, read the whole thing.
It's just the first line is.
Okay, time set aside for public comment on topics of city business other than those listed on the agenda. No action may be taken.
Tonight.
No cards.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay,
Can I ask if anybody's here to speak?
what's that?
Is here to speak?
Is anybody here need to speak? Seeing no discussion. Council, please vote. We don't have to vote. There's nothing before us.
You're good.
I told you this was gonna be a rough one. All right, so we are moving on to item 7, old business. Item A, a resolution number 73. A resolution setting the time and place to conduct a public hearing to amend the zoning ordinance of Nevada, Iowa. Motion,
Move to approve.
Second.
Sandy and Dane. Council, please vote.
Any discussion?
It's for discussion. Or for discussion.
Okay.
You're doing fine. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Motion approved.
Hold on, hold
Absolutely.
Oh, I thought it was a problem.
There you
Okay, motion approved. Moving on to item 8, new business. Resolution number 74, resolution amending and approving the fee appendix to the city code.
Move to approve?
Second.
Jason, Steve? Any discussion?
I had questions on several of them. First one, trying to find the exact wording. In regards to the cemetery, I'm really not all that comfortable with increasing the fees on the infant packages for the baby land, as it's called, as well as the traditional burial fees for infants. Seems like something we don't need to increase costs on, and I'm sure it does not happen enough that it's a cost issue for us. Or if we could strike those changes in some way.
So which one was that, Luke? The
I'm talking about
package?
in the cemetery, item 3, infant
Babyland
package to be
package.
used in Babyland, as well as down on the chart lower for traditional burials for infant.
So item 3, the package, that includes the opening and closing. It also includes a stone. Just the stone will cost us over $500. And then we've got the opening and closing associated with it. So when we did these fees, this recommendation, we took information from 7 or 8 different communities to look where we're at. And we took the averages. We were extremely low. We haven't done anything since probably at least 2009. So it's been over 16 years since we've done anything. And we
For
just
the
felt
infants,
that
only for infants or in general across the board?
all of them
All
for
of
the
them.
cemetery. So we've adjusted some grave opening and closings over time, but not packages or lots or anything like that. So that's where that information comes from. And we took that to the board. We also talked with the funeral director and asked what, the recommendation that we were sharing and what their thought was. And based on what they're seeing around, we're right in line with what they're seeing. So that's the reason for our recommendation. So.
Now, my concern is just for the item 3 there, we're going from 575 to 1,000. We're talking about families that are already going through pretty tragic, losing an infant or a child, and us putting in an additional financial burden. I really struggle with that.
I understand
I'm
your
guessing
point.
that-
We're
that-
just trying to cover our costs.
Right, I understand, and I noticed that's the largest increase out of all of those there, and I'm sure it's because we haven't wanted to increase it in the past, trying to catch up, but I can't imagine, you may have data, Tim, on how often this happens. I can't imagine it's enough that it's a large number for us. I hope it's not a large number that this happens for, but.
Can I not take the podium? You can hear me, right? Probably a large part of the reason it wasn't increased was because I fought it tooth and nail before, and Tim's not wrong. Looking at what it costs, one. Of everything this city does. This item is probably the second I quit enjoying being on city council back during the housing crisis. I would not raise rates on Babyland. I don't even like talking about it. Talk to even before, I don't want to talk about it. All the things we can do, fund celebrations, have parades, whatever else the city does. This might be the hill I die on. We can lose money as a city helping bury infants of poor families. I don't want to see raise rates on this.
Any other comments?
I'm not gonna go to the podium either because I think you can hear me. But I was on the same train as Andy when we did that, and I don't like talking about Babyland either, but that's all I got to say about it.
Anyone else?
I've got more that I want to ask about, but
Well, if there's I'll say something, sorry, look, I don't mean to cut
Oh,
you
you're
off. If there's a way we could vet people that are in destitute, I would be happy to work with them as far as that kind of stuff goes. But I get it, it's a horrible thing, I've had infants die in my family, it sucks. But I also don't want the city taking on the burden of people that can afford to take care of their families. Now, if it's somebody in destitute, I can understand that, but. And that's
I guess
where
I
we
don't
get
know
the-
how I figure that out.
And that's where we get to the tricky
It-
stuff.
if you want to kick that one back out and not do anything with that, that's entirely up to you. We're just trying to cover
Right,
what our expenses are. I
that's
understand
exactly what
it's-
our expenses are, about
But the-
1,000 or.
By the time you, yeah. But if you, choose to make a change, I'm totally fine with that. So we're presenting it to you based on, what our expenses are. And from our end of it, our side of it, I totally understand the emotion that's attached to it. I don't disagree with that whatsoever, but there's another side of it too, and that's the side that we're trying to look at it from. So it's entirely up to you, whatever you want to do.
I guess I'll chime in on this one too, but I mean, I'd be inclined, I get there's a bottom line to it, but I am kind of leaning that way too on, of all the things we do as a community, maybe this is something, people going through this, and I think it'd be a gesture that we should do. So I'd be inclined to, I don't know if the right phrasing is omit that out of these changes, but that'd be my inclement, or keep it current, or keep it where it is right now. That'd be my inclination, but I get there's a bottom line, but I'd be curious kind of what other communities do with it too. I mean, if there's other programs or anything like that, or.
Every community is probably different in that respect. There aren't a ton of municipal cemeteries out there. Some are private, some are county run, some are municipal, everybody does it different. So, I would just say that you make an exception for one, that this does potentially open a door down the road for others who say, well, I don't have it either, but somebody needs to be.
And
I don't know.
you said the stone itself is 500.
Mhm.
And
I'm not talking about
that we
removing
pay
it.
for, right?
What's that?
And so there's no getting around that one, right? We can't absorb that cost. That's something we pay the monument.
That's what it
company.
is, yep. And that's not, we're not adding anything to that stone
Right.
cost. That's just a pass through. Very few. We haven't had one in years, so.
And just to be clear, I'm not talking about removing it to have it be free. I'm just keeping it at
I know.
the rate we currently have and limiting the change.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
To
I'd,
go through your other changes.
yeah.
I'd like to amend my motion to approve and remove the increase on the,
Jason, you want to wait and have Luke go through his other changes you want
Oh.
to see first?
Sorry.
oh yeah, let's hear that. Yeah,
Sorry. You want to click me. I just had a question, Tim.
Luke's back. I'm sorry, I had to say that.
It's okay. On the field house stuff. The indoor playground pass,
Yep.
my memory may be not good, but the indoor playground was always sold as no different than an outdoor playground, just inside for winter, bad weather, something like that. So when we're adding a charge to that now, that changes things.
Correct. And I would say that there is a difference between an indoor playground and an outdoor playground. Outdoor playground is a lot of hard surfaces. You've got rain, sunshine, weather helps you kind of keep that clean in a sense. If somebody spills something on it, so it's into the ground or it just runs down. Somebody comes into the indoor playground and it's a lot of soft surfaces. They're not as durable as what an outdoor playground is for hard surfaces like those are built on. You spill on it, there's germs everywhere in there. So we're just doing our best job to keep it clean, provide a healthy and sanitary environment for people to use. And it takes a lot of time. And I'll be the first one to admit, when we did this, we did not anticipate how much time that was going to take, but it's a lot. And I think from our standpoint, that's our goal, is to provide a healthy, safe, clean, sanitary environment. And to do that, it takes time. And I think when you give something free to everybody all the time, there's not any skin in the game, so to speak. They treat it free. And I don't think, by adding a $20 fee per year per child, I don't think it's excessive. It's $1.66 a month. I think at the end of the day, all the people that could have it, it makes a big impact for us, but I don't think it's a big, huge burden on the user to do that. So, but I will tell you, it takes a tremendous amount of time.
How do we, am I correct that if somebody is there with an older kid at a practice or something like that, the younger brother or sister is allowed to use the play area?
They can go use it, but yes, we want them to have a pass.
They would need a pass.
That $20 pass. Yep. And again, it's soft surfaces. They absorb a lot of stuff. It's hard to clean. It's in the turf. It's on the webbing. It gets in the floor, on the carpet, outside of the play area. It's just different. Somebody spills, we got to go clean it up. Somebody spills outside, we don't worry about it. So they are different.
I just struggle with it, I thought it was gonna be a playground, no different than any other playground, just inside and I know we probably knew, I feel like we knew ahead of time that cleaning would be a part of that, but.
We did know ahead of time that cleaning would be a part of it, but like Tim's reiterated several times, we didn't realize as much time as it would take. There's special things that we do to that playground and it gets cleaned multiple times a day.
Is that just because it's so popular?
Yes,
Following
yes,
the people?
correct. Popular from people all throughout the central area of our county and beyond, actually. So that's how popular it is. We have people coming from all over. And as far as from a standpoint, there's a reason that people have indoor playgrounds and things like that within, then make money off of those, right? You go to different places that are indoor facilities and go play, and they're for profit. We're not looking at this as a for-profit thing. We're looking at this from a standpoint of just trying to cover some of our expenses that we have in cleaning product and in staff time, and that's all we're trying to do. And I really do think that asking what I think is a minimal dollar amount to have some invested interest. Dane, your family uses that facility and you understand it.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you've seen people there cleaning it and wiping it down
Often.
and I think that it's okay. We're not doing it for profit, Luke. We're doing it so we can maintain the integrity that we have at the facility, and we want to be able to do that, not just right now, but for years to come. And I think that's the important thing to take away from this, is that it's the integrity of what we try to provide our community, and that it's a clean facility, and it's a facility that can be used by everyone. But like Tim said, we want to have people have a little bit of skin in the game, and from a fairness standpoint, we really do think that's the fairest way to do it, is to make sure that everyone that wants to utilize that playground and helps pay that portion of it.
What's the age limit? I know I've seen the sign up for
It's
that.
actually rated like 2 to 12, but
I know
12-year-olds are a little bit old to be in there, and the 2-year-olds just kind of are climbing around on the turf and are kind of climbing around in there. It really depends on the ability of the child at the end of the day and where they're at, so.
Have we looked at a Beta resident versus outside resident rate?
We,
No, we have not, and we won't. That was part of the agreement we had with Story County, that we wouldn't charge resident, non-resident fees, and we don't have the staff to
Okay.
monitor that anyway.
Yep. And with the amount of dollars that Story County has supported our facilities with, I think that just wouldn't be prudent.
So is the playground included in like the youth basic pass?
Yep.
Okay. So if you're just coming for the playground, it's 20 a
Yep.
year.
Yeah,
But if you're doing youth, you're already paying anyway.
So there won't be an additional $20.
no,
No,
so the best thing to do, if your kid's like that 2 to 6 age group, I would spend the $30 and $10 extra per year.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds dumb to even say $10 extra per year. Like Dane has that pass for his kids, so that way he can go in with them and they can go shoot hoops. They like to spend a lot of time on the playground, but they can go shoot hoops. They can go run around on the turf, kick the soccer ball, if it's all open, for $30 a year, that 2 to 6 year old can do that. And it's $60 per year for a 7 to 17-year-old, so that's coming in with an adult to be supervised at those times.
I just kind of wanted to point out, because I think there's probably some council members or folks in the room that are that weren't necessarily here when the initial conversations were taking place. Tim and Rhonda did say, like, we're gonna be learning as we go, you know, so a change like this, you know, it was gonna kind of be a learning process to see what was working and what wasn't. So I just kind of want to point that out to you. You guys said from the get-go, there's gonna be changes at points as we learn more.
I had one more, I'm sorry. The indoor play, renting out the whole indoor play area, $150 basically for a 2-hour session. When I think that it's birthdays that we're talking about for mostly, I would imagine. When I think of,
For the most part, yeah, the birthday parties, yep.
when I think like what else we have at Parks and Rec when it comes to like our shelters at our other parks. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's much lower than that to rent a shelter.
Yeah, but you can't compare a shelter to the indoor playground. They're different
I understand
things.
it's not apples and apples, but
Right.
it's much lower. 25.
25 for the day for a shelter,
For a whole
but,
day.
but you're paying for just the shelter.
And
That's all you
right,
get.
and you're not getting exclusivity of the park and
That's
and all that, I know,
correct.
but. I think when I'm thinking of birthdays, a June birthday for $25, you can rent a shelter and have a park. But if you have a February birthday or January birthday and you can only go inside, we're charging a lot more for a birthday party. And I know we're not talking about the same stuff.
Yeah.
But outside, you're not getting sole use of the playground. Anybody can go
understand.
take over that playground. Out there, you're gonna get sole use of the playground. You're taking over the social area. And again, we're coming back, we're having staff there because typically that's on a weekend. We don't staff that on a weekend. But if you're in there on a weekend, we're gonna be there to protect the facility.
Right,
And so you got the setup and the be there during the event and the cleanup afterwards. So again, there's distinct advantages and things that you're
yeah,
gonna get.
I understand all
for
that, I wish it was a little closer, not the same cost for all the reasons you said, just.
It was actually
We're talking
hundred and
about
fifty
families
for an
for
hour
birthday
and a half,
parties.
and now you're getting 2 hours for 150. So we actually lessened it from what it was.
We haven't had a single person that has, we have, let's see, last weekend alone, I believe we had 4 birthday parties. But we haven't had a single person make a complaint in regards to the cost to have a birthday party there. They actually are of the opposite of like, oh, okay. And that's where it's at. Yeah, could I get a quart too? Yeah, that's this much, and they add to it because they do find it to be fairly economical.
Do you have a comparison to like what for-profit playgrounds might charge for a birthday party like that?
What did Sarah say?
Sarah took-
$50, I
Yeah.
think somewhere in Ankeny is what it costs
She-
for a 2-hour.
I've been to one down there.
She
but I
took
know
her
how much it
son
costs.
to a facility in Ankeny on Friday last week, over the weekend, spent $30 just for the day.
To be clear, we're talking about just the indoor playground.
Right.
Yeah.
Those numbers might be off.
What's
You could go to Perfect Games and get it for $10. I mean, maybe not exclusively, but I mean, when we're talking about,
Perfect Games Playground, I'm sorry, doesn't even come close to what we have. I'm keeping that real, it's not even close, their little jungle gym area is.
okay.
It's the same, I'm sorry. But in Ankeny or places like that, that's how much people are paying for birthday parties at their different locations. So, to be honest, we would have to do some more research on something else comparable.
Mhm.
That is something that we could.
Well, and I've been to the one in Ankeny, so that was kind of what I was thinking, you know, just for a reference point.
Are you done?
That was all I had.
All right.
I appreciate your answering. Thank you, Robin.
So I'll amend my motion to exclude the increase on the number 3 under 510.10 cemetery infant package to remain the same.
You want a second on that?
As well as a traditional burial for an infant. In the chart.
It's hard down below.
Yeah, I see it.
3 and
75 for one and 75 for the other. I was just gonna keep the Babyland one. That's where I was at with that.
I didn't hear what you
So what
said.
is your motion?
To adjust or leave the cemetery 510.10 number 3 infant package to remain at 575.
Yeah, I would second, just as Jason described, just that line, but not that.
But keep the traditional burials increase.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
that's a minimal increase. It's less than the rest.
Oh,
Additional
Okay.
comment?
any additional comment from anybody? All right, council, please vote. Passes. Moving on, next item, item B is approved purchase of office furniture for the new wastewater treatment plant. Any comment?
I'll move to approve option 1.
Second.
All right, Jason, Henry?
There's Harold. Harold, is that stuff that's gonna last forever and ever and ever?
I hope so. Real cheap. Yeah, I mean, we only have one desk at the old facility. It's been there longer than I have with the city. And,
So you're not moving that one then?
then?
Yeah, you better move that one. Alright,
It might move out there.
alright.
We built the other offices and the lab and everything is what this equipment's for.
I'd be more willing to buy the more expensive stuff if it's gonna last longer.
It's fairly comparable stuff.
Okay, alright. Keep it where I'm at then.
Any other comments? Okay. I already got some motion. All right,
Please vote.
council, please vote. Okay, passes. Next item is reports. We'll start with Jordan.
All right, so today Ryan and I drove around and took a tour of some of the facilities. We'll finish that another time. There's only, we got through 3 of them, so we have a couple more to go through. And then we had splash pad review. Last week, Joe and I met with JEO to discuss the 8th Street Bridge. Really what we are planning on for that is really just overlayment, so mill that out and redo the asphalt that's on there currently, and then also do the support beams underneath. So Henry, I think it was you last time we discussed this, we talked about keeping that historical value of the bridge, and I think that's really important. So that's one thing that we discussed with them, to make sure that if we do accept the funding for it, to make sure we can keep that historical look for it as well. So they're looking into that a little bit more and get back to us for that. Have progress meetings again on Wednesday. The plant startup is scheduled for April 7th. That is pending our DNR review. I don't see any hiccups on the DNR review, but yeah, looking forward to that initial startup and get that process moving forward. Tim, Rhonda, and I had a tour with the Ames City Council of our field house. I think it was last week or the week before. I can't remember which week it was. So that was pretty fun to have them here, tour everything and look everything over, and ask questions and go from there. And then Joe and I also met with Federal Railroad Association to discuss our current quiet zones and what we need to do to get all of those in compliance. They've had a lot of retirements, and since those retirements, they are kind of transitioning into different rules that we didn't have to abide by 20 years ago whenever we got those quiet zones. So we just have to update some things and keep those quiet zones. That way we don't hear any horns. You also have my report. Is there any questions I can answer for you?
We talk about the railroad stuff. Is there any talk about trying to improve the crossings at all?
So yeah, I did talk to Frank about that. He's also reached out to him to talk with him about it. And we have an article coming out in our Nevada next month to get people to actually call and call them and complain, I guess, about that. Frank said that that is probably the easiest way to get them out here is to get multiple calls from the actual citizens rather than the city and the FRA itself. So they have essentially it's a violation quota that they need to keep up with. And if they don't do that after so many calls, they get a violation and a fine imposed on them. So that's why we're putting it in our Nevada to let people know. We'll also post it online. That way they can call that number and also reference the crossing number as well. That way they can get calls and get it out there. So 11th Street has been a pretty big issue. I mean, really, the whole entire time I've been here, I've noticed it. They keep having bolts that pop out and everything. And Frank from FRA has reached out to him, and his response to that is, "We'll get to it when we get to it." And so I know Joe has reached out to him multiple times as well. So we really need citizens to reach out and
That's the best thing that you can do.
yeah, is raise that concern with them. Yeah. Other than that, our crossings are pretty much in compliance. There's let's see, 6th Street, we need to do a couple of different things with the curb. 8th Street, we have to do the same thing. 19th Street, we have to put some channelized devices in there. We have to not take credit for let's see, what road is it? South 8th and what was the other one? 11th. So 11th and 8th Street, South 8th Street, we will not be taking credit for just because there's a lot of things that we'd have to do to it due to the driveways that are around it. We'd have to eliminate those driveways, and I think that would be quite expensive. So he said once we get all of our traffic counts and everything, they'll be able to calculate the figure and it shouldn't really affect our quiet zones at all, but they will still be in the quiet zone. We just don't take credit for them. So, yeah.
2nd Street could really use a pedestrian crossing. Blind hill as you go over, there's no sidewalk on either side.
Yeah. And yeah.
There's no current sidewalk either, which makes it tough to ask for pedestrian crossing, but
If there was a goal to, or if we wanted to put a sidewalk or a pedestrian crossing on there, would that fall on us or would that fall on UP?
I think the UP would be willing to donate some money to it. We would have to have the crossing gates just like we do on 11th and everything. So I can reach out to FRA and see if that's a grant or something that they'd be willing to do.
Rick, you remember why we didn't do it before? I know we had talked about that in the past at 2nd Street. You remember why? Brian, do you remember why?
That's been on the radar as long as
Yeah.
I can remember, but when we did
I
Sixth
thought there was
Street.
space or something over there. We don't have enough
I think it was the
space.
setback on the sidewalk on
Yeah,
all the property, because
I
those
think that's
houses
what that
on
was.
the south side of the tracks are so close to the
Yeah.
street. On the north side, I don't think it's a problem.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a reason why we haven't moved forward with that.
Talk about how far the sidewalk has to be from the street
Yeah.
and
Okay.
how close it would be to the house. I don't remember the exact details, but that's kind of what I remember.
Yeah. I know it's something we've looked into.
Yeah,
It's pretty bad and it can get pretty dicey if you're driving through that intersection and someone's having to walk through on the street and there's really nowhere for them to go when they're crossing. So.
And the UP does offer grants, and I'll have to check with Frank. I believe there's one coming up. So if that's something the council would like to entertain, I'll do get more information and reach out to them and see where we go from there.
Investigate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions, Jordan? Anybody? Council, I'm gonna do mine at the end if that's okay.
Want to thank the new mayor for sitting down and meeting and just introducing himself. I think he's done that with several in the room, but just want to thank you for doing that. Pizza Palooza, plugging right along. I know several in the room are on that committee, but ticket sales are looking good, looking strong. I think it's going to be a great show and a great way to spotlight Nevada.
I guess I'll chime in on one thing. I wanted to thank several people, I guess, for some very good conversations at the open house before this meeting. And I just appreciated those conversations and that dialogue. So just wanted to say that, I guess, in regards to that.
I'm still trying to get spun up on everything. I'm gonna be reaching out to all the department chairs in the next week or so to try to set up a time just to kind of see what the upcoming projects are and reacquaint myself with everybody and meet some of the new people as well.
All right, Brenda?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thought I'd give you a quick report generally about the numbers for tonight's open house. So the NEDC sent out 41 letters to the neighbors around the proposed Nevada Flats facility. I was pleased tonight with attendance. Thank you to those of you in the room that attended, that were invited. We had 18 of the 41 addresses represented. So thought you'd be interested. We did collect, if they had an email, we'll pass that on to the proposed developer and encourage them to stay in touch with the neighbors to the project. So that's an update there. Also wanted to give a bit of a shout out also on the housing front. So I think Ryan would agree, we had a busy week on the housing permit front. Probably the busiest week or 10 days since I started working here in Nevada. So there were 7 housing units, single family housing units that came in for permits last week, which is excellent news. So I know I've talked with you all before. This is not a one particular housing facility or type. We need to be working on housing on all different fronts. And so this is welcome news. That we have 7, thrilled with 3 under construction at Trailside, which has been a great partnership with the city council, NEDC, and the county. And so thrilled that in one of the yuckiest March days, they were out digging basements for that. So again, thanks to almost all of you that were able to attend the open house. I would agree with Henry. We had good conversation today.
Brenda, I meant to ask, will there be a representative from Capstone at our meeting on the 14th as well?
There will be, they'll likely will be their whole team here. I would assume the architect, the finance, and the actual board for Capstone. If something changes, I will make sure Jordan knows so we can communicate that out in the council packet.
I'm good.
Rick?
Director Brandis and myself attended the EMA meeting today. It was a tabletop exercise to improve communication resources for the scenario of the wildfire, which happens to be kind of what we're facing here lately. A lot of wildfires, grass fires taking off a little bit farther south. They're calling in multiple departments, multiple hours. So we're just reminding folks that our open burning is not till April 1st. So they can hold off a bit.
Okay, Rhonda?
I have nothing additional.
Marlis?
Taking lots of notes. Good evening. I just have a few quick things. We have officially hired a new director. She will start full-time in June. And she'll be with us 1 day a week until then. So we're excited to have her. Her first day is actually next week. So we're excited to welcome her into Nevada. Secondly, we recently received an ADA accessibility grant for $10,000 to get a new circulation desk or the front desk at the library. If you've been in, it's a very high desk and people in wheelchairs and actually kids too have a really hard time seeing us when they're checking out their materials. So Dylan is going to be the program manager on that project, and the deadline, I believe, is April of 2026 to have that new desk in, but we're very excited to have a much lower desk where everyone can get up there easily to check out their materials. And then lastly, we have a local Eagle Scout. His name is Trevor Nussbaum. He has been to actually several board meetings. He's been to, I think, all of the library board meetings for the past several months, friends of the library board meetings, talking about this project that he's doing at Patton Park, which is a little green space just to the side of the library. He is raising funds and actually is almost finished raising the funds to put in a cement pad, a sidewalk, that's all ADA accessible with benches and a little table and a sunshade for people to enjoy that space, in the summer or really anytime. So people enjoy sitting out there, but it is a very sunny, hot spot. So we're excited for that project to be done. And he's actually shooting for the end of May for that project to be completed. So when it's done, we hope you all come out and enjoy it. Any questions for me?
Thank you for all the work that you've been doing since Aaron left,
thank you.
in the interim. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anything unless you have questions.
I'm good as well.
All right. Thanks everybody for bearing with me. I'm new at this, not particularly good, as you could tell. But getting up to speed and meeting with a lot of people with Jordan. Most of the council members, Steve, we're gonna get together at some point.
Yep.
Thank you to all the department heads that put up with my ridiculous questions. I have a lot, but hope to do a good job for y'all. All right. That brings us motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second,
All right.
all that in favor?
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we're done.
We are adjourned.
We're adjourned.